take in, I give out, I let love, I let go, I release, and I know I forgive, I receive, I can feel, I believe, I am healed, I am whole, I release, I know. To push, no need to try, no need to worry or question why. Surrender, let go, release, and know.
Welcome to the Brahma Kumaris, where a new world is opened up for you. From humble beginnings in India in 1936 to a global organization with over 8,000 centers in 110 countries and 1 million students worldwide. Through their tireless commitment, passionate heart, and determined spirit, the Brahma Kumaris arrived in America in 1974 and have since grown to 35 main centers throughout America. There are also 2 residential retreat centers, Peace Village, located in upstate New York, and Anubhuti, located in Novato, California.
I want to just share a little bit about how the centers of Raj Yoga meditation began in United States. Actually, I was in Caribbean islands and I got invitation from New York that we want to start something about meditation. And it was in 1978 I came here and we rented a very small apartment in Astoria. And from there I found that a lot of people have interest. I realized that there is so much need, and from there onwards then centers started in many other states.
Our centers are safe spaces where you can explore the power of your inner world.
The classes are conducted in many homes, many cities all over across the United States. A lot of people, they learn meditation, they use it, that meditation, at their workplace, in their family. And also I find that children, young adults, because they are so much into like what really is the life about.
The Brahma Kumaris are dedicated to personal and global transformation through the study and spiritual practice of Raj Yoga meditation. And at the heart of our teaching is the belief that the pathway to peace and happiness is to remember our original nature as spiritual beings connected to the One Source. In 1981, the organization received recognition as an international non-governmental organization affiliated with the United Nations and accredited with general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council. From organizing large-scale global initiatives to local community programs, the Brahma Kumaris has a tradition of service in every field that fosters spiritual growth among individuals from all backgrounds, cultures, and walks of life.
I hold on to this vision, the world of love, world of peace and harmony, world which is free from conflict and sorrow, where we can live as brothers, one family, children of common parents, one supreme divine power.
This is your invitation to awaken and join us in creating a world of love, peace, and kindness. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. As I sit here in quiet reflection, I'm reminded how my thoughts create my reality. I've accepted that I am what I am because of what I think. So what if for this moment I choose to let go of my various attachments to physical forms that have limited my potential and my capacity? What if I chose to be free from limitations of thinking? So just for a little while, I invite you to take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale. And imagine for a moment, what if I no longer had an attachment to my name? How would that feel? What if I let go of the awareness of the gender? What if I let go of the roles that I play, the titles that I own? What if I decided to release thinking of myself as a religion, a language, a nationality? What if I choose to just let go of the name, gender, role, title, religion, language, nationality, and let go of the awareness of the body? How would I feel? Who would think of me in this awareness? And who would I think of? I would think of God. And God's remembrance would fall on me. And I, the living soul, would be completely free. Let me just sit in this moment for a little longer and just be free. Now gently bring back the awareness of your gender, language, nationality, title, role, name, religion, whatever. Bring it back to your awareness and see if you can bring the experience of freedom and peace as you go out into the world and play your various parts. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Hi everyone. Om Shanti. Welcome to your next normal. I'm your host, Sister Jenna. Today I'm really excited about our conversation because I've been talking to you about it for quite some while. If you recall our second episode of The Next Normal, we did a wonderful, show on reincarnation. We had some technical glitches because YouTube has been a trip lately. You can't even breathe without it being copyrighted or you own it on YouTube. They're just like after you. But since then, we've been really having discussions amongst ourselves here about the things inside of the soul that's sitting. And we're not quite sure why is it that energetically things don't seem to be at a level that we think they could be or should be. But also why sometimes we question our capacity or we react to certain things and situations and we're not quite sure why we do it. There are other people who see the same scene that I see, but they're different. The way they respond to it is differently, and why? And many of us are feeling, especially with the pandemic amongst us, is that we feel like something is holding us back. And I don't know if we're running. Are we on air? We're okay?
We are on air, but it got stuck.
Okay. Just pause for a little bit. All right, so hopefully you can hear me now. But what I was saying was a lot of us are thinking as we continue with the pandemic, feelings of feeling like there's something more that either we're supposed to understand about ourselves, be for ourselves. There are a lot of things going on emotionally for us. And I think unless we have a particular idea about what are some of the lingering energies that are still holding us back, maybe we can move closer towards our personal soul freedom. Today I was at our a program, a kind of a checkup that I do every week, and I was with Dr. Kogod, and we just had a very heart-to-heart conversation where she was sharing with me so many of her past life experiences, which explained to her why she had the relationship with her husband or her son or her friends. And we were saying, I said, have you ever seen where we were connected in the past? And she shared this beautiful story about us being in this village, and we were like the thinkers in the village. And we were warning the villagers that something was approaching and nobody would listen. And sure enough, it happened. And because we were kind of at the top of the mountain, we were saved, and many people in the village weren't. And I just said, that's so interesting how we can be connected in such interesting ways with one another. And we don't know the history between the two of us. But there's a reason why we're together. And the more I can somehow understand the reason, I can gain the intelligence and the love in my heart to let go where I've been, and to be able to somehow navigate myself towards just being more present and preparing more for my future than living so much from my past. So all of us, I think it was last week, right? Last week we all sat around the dining room table, about 7 of us, and we brought up our next guest, Ainslie MacLeod's website, and we did his personality quiz, the soul quiz. And would you believe, out of all of us at the table, every one of us got the same type personality as number 1, which was, you'll hear about it, which was the spiritualist. And then it goes on. But we all sat there and we were talking about some of the qualifications and the characteristics that we have incarnated in. And it's just natural for us to be the people that we are. But then there are certain parts of us that we're struggling to be who we think we're supposed to be. So Ainslie, I came to know of Ainslie when I watched a segment with him and Oprah Winfrey, where Oprah and Ainslie were having a discussion, and he was basically guiding her through her lives as well. And it was cute to see how she was kind of skeptical and sort of on guard, because this is something that she's like, I don't know about all of this woo-woo stuff. But when he went beyond that and was explaining it, she moved away from the woo-woo stuff and started to see that I could see where this really comes to our aid. And so I wanted to kind of just show you a little video on a little bit about what we're going to talk, and then I'll introduce you to who we're about to meet.
Why do past lives matter? Well, I'm very fond of saying that past lives explain everything, from your fears, phobias, limiting beliefs, uncertainties, talents, and even your entire personality. Past lives explain everything. You didn't come into this world as a blank slate. You came into this world like a fully loaded computer with all these memories, these soul-level memories of past trauma and experiences. You can never truly understand who you are without knowing who you were.
So, please welcome Ainslie MacLeod, who is an internationally acclaimed, also past life, kind of psychic, spiritual teacher, but also just a deep-hearted human being. Ainslie is also an award-winning author of The Instruction, The Transformation, and the most recently, The Old Soul's Guidebook, Who You Are, Why You're Here, and How to Navigate Life on the Earth. Ainslie specializes in exploring past lives to reveal your life's purpose. This is really important for everyone who's watching tonight. What is my life's purpose? It's a question so many of us have continued to ask, especially during the pandemic. And he has also been featured on Oprah and so many other Super Soul series and so on. Some of Ainslie's clients have been folks like India Ari, Dr. Oz, Martha Beck, to name just a few. And of course, he did a little bit of a sneak preview into me too, but that's not public. So please, let's warmly welcome Ainslie MacLeod to The Next Normal. Hi, Ainslie. So glad that you could join us tonight.
Hi, Sister Jenna. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. It really is an honor.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you back. I told you before we got live that for the past few weeks I've been listening to your book, Past Lives, and how knowing our past lives can heal us. And I also shared with you that I've been sharing it with a few friends because during this pandemic, a lot of us have some extra time to think about our lives. And we can think about a particular relationship that we feel has caused a great deal of pain. Or we can think about a particular situation that we find our lives in and we feel like it's a block, like we're being held back, even though we're putting in all the right tools and the right things. But we still feel like something is in the soul that's lingering. It's lingering. And I do believe that it has to do with a past life experience or many, many lives. I know in your book you've mentioned that maybe we've had over 100 lives or so. For me, in my teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, we believe that the oldest souls will have a maximum of 84 and then maybe we get recycled, and we believe that the first beginning of the journey of the soul's journey is a golden and a silver aged birth where you're like walking living deities on the planet. But when the energy of the purity and the divinity starts to wane, then the mixture comes into the personality and then the karmas really start to get activated where karmas with, different stories and the way that we're dealing with life, there's a little bit of pain and suffering. And as we keep growing through the cycle and we get to the end of our last major birth, there's a huge transformation that starts to occur. And I feel that what you're offering our lives is that you're putting us at a confluence of our journey. You're putting us in the confluence of our journey. And you're inviting us to sort of reflect that, the previous births are still lingering, but there are future births that are also waiting for you to walk into, but you can't walk into your future births still holding on to your old ones. And so I wanted us to be able to have a heart-to-heart conversation tonight, especially the community that you're walking into with The Next Normal is a beautiful set of souls who are extremely curious about these things, and they want answers. They want answers. So I'd like to start off with our, time together with kind of like, how are you feeling, about this particular pandemic and where we are as souls? In particular, what do you think souls who are newer, what do you think they're feeling? And what do you think would be the older souls in terms of how they're coping with the pandemic?
Where to begin? I'm thinking of something that my spirit guides. I work with these spirit guides, and they offer words of wisdom. And one one thing that I think is very profound is that they say that the experience is not the lesson. The lesson is what you draw from the experience. And there's always a positive lesson, no matter how challenging the experience itself. So when we get something like the pandemic coming along, the difference between the less experienced souls and the older souls shows up in the way they express the fear or concern. So for a younger soul who may not have had lifetimes dealing with something like this, there are a lot of fears come up. A lot of fears get triggered. For older souls, and the people I work with, and the people that will be listening to this are going to be much older souls. Well, you've been there before. You were perhaps in the Great Plague in London in the 1600s, or maybe you were caught up in the flu epidemic after World War One, or maybe the Black Death back in the 13th century. So this is not your first pandemic, I think, is what I'd say. And what the older soul recognizes is that, yes, there's something to be concerned about. You want to make sure you're safe and take care of others, but not necessarily go into a place of flapping around in panic. That this is dealable with. It's you've been through it before. And actually, the people that I work with have generally seen this as an opportunity for a shifting gears. Now, this is not to say that I know some people are going through terrible stuff with loss of family members, a loss of work. It's a very, very challenging time. It's not to dismiss that, but a lot of people feel that this is a great opportunity. I've heard a lot of people say, "Well, I'm getting the chance to catch up on my reading, to listen to all those podcasts that I'd meant to." It's a time for reflection, time for learning. It's like the brakes have suddenly been put on, and we have to go within. So this is really about seeing the silver lining. It's not to say this is not. Right. It's an awful thing. Sometimes people have an idea that these things are given to us. It's here it is. We need to have this experience. Actually, it's more that the experience happens, and then it's, well, really, what do you do with it?
So what if you are an old soul and you were in one of these past pandemics, let's say the Spanish flu, and you passed away during the Spanish flu, or someone very close to you passed away? What do you think would be the reaction of that person in this lifetime?
So, well, let's say you lost loved ones in a pandemic before, then the fear that will be triggered this time around will be loss. So you may find, especially if you have children, you might find it very, very hyper-vigilant, very, very concerned about their well-being. And clearly not everybody is. You know, they're sending kids to school and, without really, I think, sufficient precautions. The fears show up differently depending on your experience. I mean, this is where I talk about past lives. Past life fears shape how you respond to traumatic events in this life. So that's why people see it so differently. You can get siblings who perceive the same event through completely different lenses, because it's all based on what's being triggered, these reminders of their past life experience. So if it's loss, the person could get very concerned about the well-being of their friends and family or others, and not just other. It could be globally really concerned about other people. The younger souls, they do respond differently as well. So they're not going to react quite the same way that the old souls do. The old souls tend to the fears are more sort of internalized. But as I say, the older souls do seem to be more able to kind of roll with it a little bit because they have been through it. I think the awareness is that, these things happen, so we need to just be pragmatic, don't ignore it. Make sure you do whatever you can to prevent it from getting any worse. And of course, there's an old soul.
Yeah.
If you've lost loved ones, you don't want that happening to you or your loved ones or to somebody else's loved ones as well. There's an altruistic component to it as well.
In my teachings of Raj Yoga meditation, we have a sort of a knowing that, let's say the cycle is of 5,000 years before it gets renewed. The half of that cycle, let's say prior to this, we've had many lives in which, I've used the acronym ALGE: anger, lust, greed, attachment, and ego. And those vibrations have been increasing in the consciousness for birth after birth. So whatever birth I'm in, man, woman, rich, poor, a king, a queen, a beggar, a pauper, whatever, I'm carrying this algae as well as my original power in me. And I've found, as I sit in meditation and look at myself too, Ainslie, it's like I know that it's the attachment to the story that I'm trying to really deal with, because I'm not going to be able to change the reality that I lived through. But how the energy of attachment just stays so etched in the memory, especially when it's of trauma or a sense of loss or grief. Is there a method or something that you are aware of that can help an individual to find peace with their past, where they can start to let go of the memory, even though they don't have the details, Ainslie, but the experience of what happened in the past, it lingers in the soul because the soul is attached to the experience. Is there a method that you have that can help souls to remove the attachment from the experience?
Absolutely. Well, I'm all about results and change and so on, because this is when I started really on this spiritual path and learning to really do the stuff that I do now. I really had no time for sort of empty, what I'd call blather. I was really looking for what is it all about? Why are we here? How do we heal? How do we improve? How do we discover what we're doing here? What's our life purpose? And that was my big focus. And what I discovered was that we're all affected by our past, but we get locked into it, and it prevents us. Our beliefs about ourselves and our past get sort of carved in stone, and they shouldn't be. But I'll give you an example. If you've got a past life where you were, let's say you were abandoned by your mother in a past life, well, your soul will see that as rejection, and it will carry that memory, but it will also carry the perception. Sometimes it's the whatever has been imposed on the soul that they see the experience almost through somebody else's eyes. And they come into this life carrying that memory, and the slightest trigger in this life will cause them to go back into perhaps even the default mode that they had in the past life, which would be to perhaps isolate or internalize their problems. And so many of us do this. We are so affected by the perceptions that the soul has carried from one lifetime to the next. And that then shapes how we then, as I say, process or experience whatever happens in this life. But there's a way to shift that, to change that, because you are not your fears. You're not even here to express them. Your soul is always wanting to improve. Your soul is motivated.
Yes.
It sees a problem and it wants to overcome it. It never wants to sit with the problem. So it will then
Can I just hold you
find
right there?
ways.
Can I just hold you?
Sure.
Can I hold you right there? Because there's something that's touched me very deeply. The soul always wants to improve. And it's not that it just wants to sit there and just continue with the same process. But, Ainslie, and tell the truth, haven't you seen so many people that they just sit there and there's something holding them back? They don't know what it is, but there's a weight from the past karma, and it just keeps them there. How do they because now I'm taking you to another question. How can we help them to get unstuck from that place? Because it can go on for decades where you just feel like you've given up on yourself. But the nature of the soul is to improve, Ainslie, and yet there's something inside that's like, I just can't, I don't have any more, I don't know how.
I've been there. I had moments in the past where I was just kind of ready to give up. And I was very fortunate that I had a little epiphany each time, which turned out to be my spirit guides trying to get through and just really saying, this doesn't have to be the way it is. You know, you can actually shape your life. And a lot of people will get that. There's a reason. I often talk about how my clients in the main fall into a narrow band between 37 and 43. And it's all surrounding the 40 mark, because that's a point for a lot of people, although it will happen with the other decades points as well. I see clients around 20, 30, 40, and so on. The soul is conscious of these decade markers and is often pushing through at that point and saying, okay, we're looking at the next decade, and what do we need to do? Sometimes really trying to get retention. So people often feel more motivated around that time to do something about their situation. It's often where a person might look at their life and say, is this really working for me? You know, is the partner I'm with, is this really doing it? It's a job. Is this satisfying? They're wanting to make some changes there. So we get these kind of watershed moments. But you're absolutely right. Some people, they identify so much with their fears. You know, this is who I am. As I say, you are not your fears. And that's a big part of what I do with somebody, is just to really go back and find out, well, what did you choose to be for this life? What's the ideal situation? Who are you sans fear? If you have no fear, strip all that away. Who are you, and what are you doing here? So it is hard. Sometimes I'll have a client who just doesn't want to shift. I'm sure everybody who's ever worked with anyone in that kind of setting will know the yeah but client. You know, you're trying to help. Yeah, but oh, I can't do that. No, I had clients say, don't ask me to meditate. I can't meditate. So, you know, well, okay, that's fine, your choice. But most of the people I talk to, by the time they've decided to work with me, they are motivated. They really want to improve. I wanted to just mention as well, this is something that I think is really fascinating, is that the choices of relationships, friendships, family, and so on, are all designed to help you with your growth. Now, when I tell people that you choose your family and they choose you, the usual reaction is a kind of, what the heck was I thinking? But once you scratch away, you know, sort of really scratch away at the surface, look at what have you learned from that? What was imposed on you? Maybe, you know, perhaps with parents who weren't able to be there for you. Well, talking of the fear of rejection, having disinterested or emotionally unavailable parents can trigger that fear, but then it's to be worked through. Very often you have to have these fears triggered, because otherwise you keep coming back. You keep reincarnating. It's funny when you were talking about the number of lifetimes that we have. The spirit guides I work with, they will talk about maybe 110 would be average, but they say actually it's hard to determine, because do you count the lives where, you know, at times when infant mortality was so high, maybe they don't really count. You know, if you died age 2, does that really count as an incarnation? So I think you were absolutely right. It could be anything 80 to 100 and something. But all those incarnations.
No, I was just saying that sometimes what fascinates me is I can barely remember what I did in a day, much less to remember what happened in a whole lifetime. But that there are certain moments in life, that there are experiences that really were, as you said, watershed moments that just shifted your perception about certain things, and you carry that emotion so deep into your membrane, you know, into your being so deep that you carried over to a next incarnation. So in terms of what do you
Right.
think a person should do to break the attachment to the experience?
Well, the suggestion I would always give is to do past life work. If I'm working with a client, I just simply find out what happened in the past life and tell them about it. I've been doing it now for about 20 years, and I continue to be amazed at how much the past relates to the present. Your personality, your fears, your talents, your idiosyncrasies, all weird little things, all past life related. So when I go into a past life, I find the salient details. It could be just a few lines really, but here you were, you grew up here, this happened to you, and this is what you've taken away from it. And the wonderful thing about this is that by simply reminding the soul that that was then and this is now, you get the most amazing healing. I see people healing from all sorts of physical issues, as well as emotional and blocks, fears. All phobias, for example, are past life related. They go back to a death in the past life. Things like fear of public speaking, which is very common. That's a past life fear around judgment. It comes from being judged and perhaps executed in a past life. And of course, then if you get in front of an audience in this life, your soul is going to freak out. It's going to go, oh, we know how this ends, because it can't separate one lifetime from the next. And this is actually a really, really important principle, because the way that past life works is simply to remind the soul of that. Because if you think of however many lifetimes it is, but let's say you're in life number 80, your body and your mind have died between lives, but your soul didn't. And the soul sees the whole bundle, the trio, as one: mind, body, and spirit. This is one of the reasons why sometimes people get sick, physically sick, and then it makes them emotionally sick as well. It could get depressed or something like that. It can create a spiritual malaise. Or you get a spiritual malaise, and when people are really down for a long time, they can get physically sick. Soul can't separate it out, so we have to help it. And just by reminding the soul, I always think of it just as saying, there's the past life, that was then, this is now. Let it go. Stop holding on to those memories. They don't serve you. At least the negative ones.
Now that sounds easy, and yet we're still attached to it. And from our discussion, we've really outlined a lot of fears that are holding us back. And I'm curious if you could share what are some of the typical past life fears and issues that you tend to see manifesting in our lives now.
There's a couple that show up a lot. One is a past life fear of inferiority. It comes from past lives where you learned that you had no value. I mentioned how these things are imposed on you. If people treat you like you have no value, then what you take away, what the soul takes away from that experience, the memory, is that you are somehow flawed, you're not worthy. And then you bring that into this life, and it takes very little in the way of triggers. It could be just a put down from a parent or something, and it triggers that memory. Suddenly, it reinforces that belief. And a lot of people go through decades with that low self-esteem, lack of self-worth, feeling that they're not good enough, imposter syndrome at work. They're going to see through me very soon. And what I found is that if you go back to the past life and deal with it, find out what created that belief in the first place, then you can, to some extent, bypass whatever happened in childhood. Those were triggers, not the causes of this manifestation. And so it happens sometimes very, very quickly that you get to a point to far greater confidence. I'll give you another one that's very common as well. It's powerlessness. It comes from a past life of enslavement or imprisonment. And you think of maybe 25 years of life being told what to do. You have no freedom at all. What happens in this life, and this is a really common one, is I see people in shitty situations, like a poor relationship, or and that's actually something people with inferiority will do. They often settle in a relationship, and then if they have a fear of powerlessness as well, they can go into a place of passivity, disempowerment, sometimes not standing up to a bully, for example, just sucking it up. And you're not supposed to do that. Spiritually, that there's no growth. You are meant to defend and protect yourself, and and be all that you can be. Don't let somebody tear you down. But it's very, very hard when you have these past life fears. You go into that. It is the default mode to go into passive, almost like a victim place. And this is again one that I've seen where you find a cause and people just blow through it suddenly. They can stand up for themselves. They can speak out, and so on.
Funny, because
and there's loads more.
I bet. I've been having an interesting feeling, and I was sharing with my friend today, Dr. Kogod. I was telling her that whenever I see such injustice and incredible abuse of power, what happens to me, Ainslie, is that I feel like, gosh, I wish I had that power to effect the change here, because what they're doing is not right.
Yes.
And I wonder where that comes from. And now you've made it very clear. It could have been some past experience of being enslaved and just not having the power to speak up when I knew what they were doing was wrong, and how deep that emotion could be inside of the soul,
Well, it's all of that, but it's also injustice in a past life. And funnily enough, that is related to a fear of betrayal. I mean, it's a betrayal of expectations, which raises a very interesting point that my spirit guides asked me one time. They said, why do you think humans say, I have no expectations? And I offered a few suggestions before the spirit guide said, souls have expectations. You have an expectation that people are going to treat you well and decently. And if they don't, it creates this major trauma. So if you've been a victim of injustice in a past life, then you come into this life on a hair trigger, not just about your own injustice, what feels unfair to you. And you'll certainly see that in kids, by the way. The kid who stomps their foot and goes, it's not fair. You can tell that past life thing is there. But you'll see it, in adults who are not just concerned about their own experience, but particularly as older souls, feeling very, very distressed about what's happening in the world. My spirit guides often say the world was never meant to be this way. And it won't always be. It will change. It'll have to. I mean, it's unsustainable, the way it is right now. And it's certainly not working for the majority. So the whole thing feels terribly unjust to old souls. And that emotion, when you feel riled up, you're identifying with the underdog, say, you see somebody being mistreated and you go, how could they do this? For me, it's like kids in cages at the border. It drives me nuts. It's related to past life experience of rejection and abandonment. It makes me physically sick to think that we could do that to human beings and children. I mean, it's just such a disgrace. So that emotion, when you get fired up about something, it's designed to get you to take action. It's rather than just because what a lot of old souls will do, they get fired up about something, but the emotions have no place to go, so they get turned in, get sick, and out of sorts and everything. It is very, I think it's essential, really, if you feel emotions coming up about a certain form of injustice for some people. I've seen one of my clients was imprisoned in a past life, and when I asked her about it, it turns out she's done a lot of work for prisoners in this life. It's a spiritual act. A spiritual act is where you heal yourself by helping those who suffer as you once did, whether it was in a past life or in this life. Everybody benefits from that. To really use that energy.
Yeah. It's almost like in a way, it's like all in sync, but at the same token, it's kind of out of sync, but it's all in sync. We've got some questions for you, which I'd like to turn to our incredible audience.
Sure.
Someone wants to ask, and I don't know what this is, so you can educate me. The question is, hold on, it's about what are your thoughts on EMDR? And do you know what that is? I mean, I asked the person to
I do.
elaborate on what it means. Okay, could you explain?
I can't remember what it stands for, but it's a technique for releasing trauma, and it's used by therapists. I think it's connected with that rapid eye movement, isn't it? Sometimes I think you can look at lights, and and then relive the experience, and it seems to release it. I did that. I did a couple of sessions of that a long time ago, 30 years ago, was dealing with PTSD from various experiences in the past, and I found it helpful. But what my spirit guides always say, it's like really very simple. Does it work for you? You know, is it effective? Because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. I mean, personally, I found I've done a lot of healing around the trauma from this life, and so I did a lot of things around PTSD, and I found that the one thing that really helped me most was to do past life work. But that's me, and of course I've got a very tremendous belief in the power of past life work. So, but yeah, it's really just, does it work for you? Yeah.
Okay, got another question for you. Louise F. would like to know, do you believe in simultaneous time and the ability to heal and clear past karmas by mentally connecting to these in the present in order to evolve?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question. What is this
I think
like
what they're
about
asking is,
parallel universe?
I guess they're saying, do you believe like you can be settling karmas and creating karmas at the same time, where you're actually evolving, but sometimes we go through like the torture and the settling of our past and we don't necessarily feel we're evolving because we're in so much pain and suffering. So the question is, can we be going through both at the same time and still be evolving? I think.
I would, yeah, I'd say absolutely. Something interesting that I was talking to my spirit guides about just recently was that they have often said that, we're here for a finite length of time. Perfection is not the goal. You want just to get to a point where you've really embodied the really powerful lessons that you're here to learn: peace, love, truth, understanding, and so on. The really big picture, the core values, paths, goals, the spirit guides will call them. But perfection is not the goal. Otherwise, you'd be here forever. We'd never get off the physical plane. So there's a point at which good is enough is enough. And of course, we can. Sometimes people beat themselves up. They feel like, I've done all this work and I thought I was getting over something, and then I had a flashback or something happened. But look at where you were. Look at where you've come from and see the progress. And sometimes you don't see it in this life. Sometimes it's only when you process this life, when you go over to the other side between lives, you go to the astral plane, and then you realize how much you've grown. But every life, even the most kind of flatline life where it appears nothing's happening, there's still growth. You're evolving all the time. I wondered if the question has anything to do with kind of parallel lives, because there is something that old souls do, is to be in multiple bodies. So the old soul could be in 5 different places to get. Partly it's because of the hockey stick graph of population growth. It's kind of growing like that. So to keep the balance between young and old souls, the old souls are splitting off to be in more places, and so you can get very varied experiences. But they're all you come into each one of those bodies with the same past life issues, the same things to be worked on. And then you get tremendous growth. And you imagine those of the 5 parts all come back together. They're just like sparks off a flame, or candles being being lit. No part is less than the other. But you come back in and you've resolved and worked through these things, and there's tremendous growth from doing that.
I'm going to have to think about that one. That one's pretty deep. Wivo on Facebook wants to know, and she's from the Netherlands, is it true that you are always in the same group of people every lifetime with the purpose of learning life lessons from them? So basically, do we always end up with the same group of people until we've learned from them, or are we expanding and going, further beyond? I mean, I love the people I'm with, but honestly, I love people. I'd like to see some new folks. So
right. It's like sometimes that can happen. You meet somebody you've known in many, many past lives, and it's kind of like, oh, it's nice to meet. I feel very comfortable, but sometimes there's not quite the passion or whatever you might be looking for. You kind of just know each other a little too well. Okay, so you come into this world with a group of souls. When you first came in from the universal consciousness, split off like little sparks from this larger flame, you maybe came in with thousands of other souls, maybe a few thousand souls. It's like a horse race. You come in and then you're all racing towards the end, and one falls at the first fence, and one runs off in the wrong direction. So we all reach the end at very, very different rates. But as you get to be an older soul, you don't have as much time ahead of you as you had when you were a younger soul. So to speed up the process of growth, you tend to choose to experience major things like marriage, friendships, parents, children, so on. You choose from this group of older souls. Now, there's a lot of souls there, but as you get to right towards the end of this journey, you do tend to select from an ever decreasing size of souls. You really want to have, it's easier if you think of it, your soul is particularly as you get older, you're really seeking intimacy. You want to get to that really deep place with other people. No chit chat. No, let's get to the real essence of what we're doing here. And it's a lot easier to do that with somebody who's in your soul family, who's going to be around the same soul age, and very often someone with whom you've had a lot of past life experiences.
Beautiful. I got a question for you. So this person says that whenever they get into this group of people, they get this feeling of mistrust. They don't feel safe. They feel like they have to be on guard. But it's a group of people that they have to be with all the time. What would you say they're asking would be the reason for that feeling?
Well, that would be a past life issue, and it would be around rejection. The soul is fearing, I mentioned when you have rejection as a fear coming from abandonment in a past life, that you have a tendency to isolate and internalize your problems rather than sort of getting out there and sharing. The soul has these two things going on. It's a push and a pull. It knows that to belong, you're going to overcome the fear. So it wants to do that. But then it feels once it does belong, now you could be rejected again. So it withdraws. I've even seen somebody I worked with recently has belonged to lots of groups but never stayed there. And what she was doing was kind of leaving so that she had some control over the outcome. So she wasn't going to be abandoned. She was almost like the one abandoning them. It gave her some power. It's not the healthiest way to deal with it, of course. And one thing that I have found is that I consider this to be the elevated way of healing something like that is not just to belong, but to be a uniter in some way. I've seen this with podcasters, for example. People have interviewed me. I've seen this show up an awful lot, where they're bringing the tribe together to heal themselves. It's a spiritual act. They heal themselves by helping others who suffer as they once did. So the people that they're drawing in are going to be members of the tribe. They're going to be the soul family, similar soul age, similar kind of perspective on the world. And again, everybody benefits when you do that. These are people who need to belong as well. I have a membership program, and this is very much what we do in the soul world. Is really giving people a place to come and feel really safe to meet other old souls, most of whom are going to be members of the same soul family. And it's a place where you can
Wow.
you can talk about your spiritual journey without people thinking you're crazy or kind of woo-woo or whatever.
How do we
We're all
find
here
your
to
soul
belong, by the
world?
way.
Good. How do we find your soul world program that you do in the evenings?
If just go to my main website, which is ainsliemacleod.com, and all the information is there. We do classes.
Okay.
We do have a theme every month. We're exploring wounded empaths and narcissists this month, which is a fascinating exploration. If you've ever been affected by a narcissist, you might find this interesting.
The whole country in the
we
United
have
States is
progression.
being affected by a narcissist.
I think it's absolutely true. It's absolutely. I think everyone could benefit from this. See, we have regressions. We have
That's going to be your
Q&A,
best class. Your best class.
Oh, people are loving it. Absolutely. Oh, we're all being traumatized
bet.
by what's happening in the corridors of
Oh
power
my God,
right
it's an
now.
incredible period.
Yeah.
Hey, I want us to go over
Oh my gosh.
some of those. Yeah, I told you last week a whole bunch of us sat at the table and did your personality or soul quiz. And would
Yeah.
you be open enough to share with us some of the personality traits that come out and what they're connected to and how we are? And everybody who's watching, I really ask you to take down your pen or paper or go to AinslieMacLeod.com into his website, and you'll see the soul quiz there. We all took it amongst ourselves, and we were very surprised by the fact that the whole group had one similar answer. Together, we all had the same personality trait, which was prominent, which I thought was very, very interesting. But Ainslie, could you talk about some of the types of personality traits that we incarnate in and what's expected of those traits?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this is my subject. I just absolutely love this. I find it endlessly fascinating to see who people are, what they've chosen to be. Our personalities, using the system that I got from my spirit guides, can all be. We can identify who we are based on 10 soul types and the combination that we have thereof. What I could do here is give you a very typical example, my typical client in a way, or somebody would come to me. What I would see, and by the way, you're talking about how you and everyone else seem to be spiritualist soul types. My clientele is probably 98% spiritualist types. So the spiritualist is a soul type that you develop through past lives, really in two different areas. It tends to be a healing, so it could be past lives as a midwife, surgeon, doctor, medicine person, so on, and also spiritual, like monks, contemplatives, nuns, and so on. So that's why in fact, I mentioned to you that I've always said this, I have more doctor clients than any other single occupation. They are spiritualist types, old soul spiritualists who are looking to make a difference. So they go into medicine, but they also have that very strong spiritual side. I think almost all of them have some interest in alternative practices as well, even if they can't sort of do much about it in the setting they're in hospital, perhaps. But so most of the people I talk to are spiritualists. One of the common influences, first influence on that, the primary influence would be a creator. The sensitivity that you develop through lives of creativity, tapping into the muse on the other side, and so on. This gives, you think of artists, you think of a high degree of sensitivity. That sensitivity imposed on the spiritualist pushes you into the next realm. It makes this a more intuitively led life. The next thing that would probably show up in somebody would be something like a thinker influence, very rational. Sometimes it sits alone, sometimes it's modified by something else. If it sits alone, just as the way I perceive it, it means you're here to learn and you don't want to get too caught up in academia or theory, which you might have done in previous lifetimes. It's all about hands-on experience. This is something called a mission of exploration, finding out for yourself. Another influence that might show up would be the performer. Past lives as perhaps a singer, dancer. Really, it's about expression, an actor or something. what that does is it gives your soul a desire to influence people. It usually gives a good people skills, maybe a little more bubbly personality, a good sense of humor, but always the desire to find an audience. If I see it in a writer, for example, it could be the difference between a person who writes for 500 people and the person who says, the performer says, well, if we can write for 500, we can write for 5 million. Let's make it accessible and something that really touches people. A lot of souls will choose something like a hunter or a leader influence. You learn that through, well, the hunter would be through past lives, literally hunting. It makes you very more action-oriented, often an enjoyment of the great outdoors. I don't have it, so I always tell people I'm an indoor cat. That's why I view the world from the window. It's like, I used to joke about my kids when they were little. They would threaten to take me camping as a way to control me. You know, it's like, but if I was a hunter, I would love that. It would be like, yeah, I want to be outdoors. The leader, the same. You would learn to be that through lives of leadership, and learning to use your authority. These elements often give a person, particularly a woman, a bit more masculine energy, which is often used to perhaps give you a little bit more drive, or especially one thing, if you know that you've got the leader in your soul types, if people put you into a position of authority without you even having to try, they just know that you can step up, you'll be able to handle responsibility. There could be an educator influence in there. Then you're very much drawn to teaching in some way. Those were probably some of the typical things. What you have is a combination always. And each part will influence the other parts as well. And
yes.
So there's the actual, although the variations, they're not infinite, obviously. But you know, everybody has a soul type, then primary influence, and then a lot of secondary or number of secondary influences. Usually I can find probably between 3 and 5 secondary influences. 5 would be very much the most I would see.
Fascinating.
And then I can tell, you know, really this is the core of who you are. And once I see that, then everything is sort of laid out in front of me. It's like, well, you know, you should be doing these sort of experiences. Now, this doesn't tie you down to like, oh, well, you have to be, I see this, so you must be a bank teller in this life. I actually once did a personality test which said, you know, you should be an artist. And I was thinking that's pretty good because I was an artist for 20 years. But it also said, or a bank teller. Well, I can't count. So you don't want me counting, you know, being a bank teller. I was, you know, and that's too specific. Yeah. What I look at is that what you want to do in any setting, you want each part of you to be fulfilled. So with this kind of combination, the spiritualist will always look for a higher purpose. It looks for meaning. The creator wants to have a lot of autonomy, pushes a lot of people to be self-employed. The thinker will want to feel like you're growing all the time. And if you flatline, that's actually something a lot of people get, especially when they get to the 40 mark. If you feel bored, that's that part of your soul saying, I am done here. You've got to make a change. Yeah. And I've literally worked with people where they can't go into work anymore. The shutter comes down. It's just there's no higher purpose. Even if there were a higher purpose, sometimes if that part of the soul gets bored, there's nothing.
You just feel like you're done.
And so you're done. Absolutely. It can be the same with something like the hunter or the leader, because if you don't have a lot of action, or if you're not very certain about your path, it's very hard then for those parts to really sort of sink their teeth into something. One of the things I often say to somebody when I'm working with them is that really what we're doing here is validating what you kind of know already. And, you know, so I'll say to somebody, well, you know, I can see from this that you really, you know, what would be, I think, very, very suitable. Well, I worked with somebody yesterday and I said, to be honest, I think you look like me, you know, you should be reading people. And she said, well, she'd got all these insights and precognition had been happening for years, but she didn't know she should be doing something with it. And for her, it was the green light. It was the permission. And reading her, what I could see is that once she knew, then all these parts of her soul can really get engaged. It's like they go, oh, right, we know this is the right path, so let's give it 100%. I described her as a car driving along its third gear instead of fifth, or maybe like a car driving with a handbrake on.
Thing.
And now the handbrake is released. This is what you're meant to do. You got to get over some past life fears usually to be able to do things like that, especially if you're doing something that's a little kind of out of the ordinary. There can be fears around self-expression, being seen. If you were persecuted in another lifetime, that's where a lot of people will hide their light and not really shine their true personality.
Wow.
Afraid of getting,
Well, I
as
think
I put it, they're afraid of putting their head above the parapet and getting it knocked off. I hope so.
Because no, really, I mean, there's some of us that are just not living our full potential. And I was thinking about the personality of the caregiver, because when I hear that, I would think that more doctors would be caregivers, but you said more doctors are spiritualists because they're here to help humanity. But what about the caregiver?
Well, broadly speaking, what I'll see is, I'll give you an example of this. Usually the doctor, I would see as a spiritualist. It's the higher purpose. If I see a doctor or a nurse with, let's say there's two ways that I will see. There's usually the spiritualist with the helper influence, or the spiritualist with the caregiver influence. Now, the person with the helper influence, it's all about being of service. So the higher purpose, higher service, and the more sort of everyday kind of thing, rolling up the sleeves, getting things done. The difference then, so that's the person who might be in an emergency room. If I see somebody who's got the caregiver and they're in this and they're drawn to the medical or healing kind of area, then they're going to be in hospice or something like that. Much more sort of longer term care. The heart, a lot of times people choose the caregiver to open up the heart chakra. So long-term care can be a wonderful way of using that. So that tends to be the difference.
Interesting.
I put in my last book, by the way, I was working with somebody and I saw she was a caregiver, and I said, most of the people I come across caregivers are in hospice work, and she said, I'm training to be a hospice nurse. Next day, same thing. Somebody called up, I see the same thing, and I tell them what I said, and they went, oh yeah, I'm training to be a hospice nurse as well.
Fascinating. Got one last question for you before we come to a close. Asmita is saying thank you so much for this interesting session. And she's curious, whatever I am today as a personality, is it from past life, or is it accumulation from all past lives I have been in? Great question.
Yeah. So absolutely. So when you choose your personality and you choose these different elements, and your soul will choose to put them in some kind of order, and it's not just from that one last past life; it's from many, many past lives. You learn to be certain things. Like I say, you learn to be a spiritualist probably from healing, or a contemplative. You'd learn to be a leader from leading, to general or CEO, or having your own business or something. So what your soul will do is tap into appropriate past lives and draw the energy and all the characteristics and the traits from that past life to make you who you are. So what I will find is that if I'm looking back, let's say as a leader I'm working with, I might not see the leader in the last life. Maybe didn't quite show up. But I would guarantee you over the last 10 lifetimes, I probably see it showing up 6, 7, or 8 times, because you develop it through practice, whatever those really strong traits that you have. I mentioned I'm a creator type. A lot of creators are very intuitive. Of course, I do intuitive work, but I was an illustrator for 20 years. So I'll see creators with those kind of lives. I'll see educators who've taught in maybe all their last 20 lifetimes in some sort of way. it's all developed through past lives, but not necessarily just following on from the last one.
Yes, yes, very powerful. So we've spoken a lot about the past life, and we haven't really touched much on the future, even though we know that if we can sort out what's happening in the past at present, then of course the future will be filled with brightness and freedom. What's the role of God in all of this? And how do we bring the energy of God? For my particular practice, I feel like the more I can experience the energy of God's love, it's as if the love, Ainslie, it starts to absolve the intensity of my past lives, and that it's not interfering as much with my present narrative. I'm really
Yes.
more living from the energy of God's love, and so I feel a lot more free and liberated, even though I still bump into moments where I go, oh, that's still there. That's still there. I have to sort that out. But where does the energy of God come in with all of this, and how do we bring that energy of God more to help us in eradicating some of these attachments of our past?
Well, a simple way to look at it is that if you heal your fears, then there's nothing else but the true person that you are, and you then are able to act as a conduit for love. I mean, the only thing that really blocks anyone from connecting to that universal love is fear. So the more you can work through your fears, and I think it starts with identifying them and recognizing what those fears are, so that you can start tackling them. And of course, I'm a huge believer in past life work. I do feel past life work is just absolutely the quickest way. I'm an impatient person, and it's like, what will get me to that place of
Get up
healing?
going.
I don't want to. Oh, years ago when I heard somebody saying, I expect to be in therapy for the rest of my life, it's like, oh God, no.
God,
Do it
pray for them.
6 months or something.
Bless you.
But and then get on. So life's too short. And a lot of old souls will feel like that. You just want to sort of get on with actual living. But yeah, what we're all seeking, we're all in a journey towards love, and that is the ultimate energy. I often describe how your soul's journey is taking it from a place of fear to love, and it learns to love through experiences on the physical plane, good and bad, and then learning to transcend those fears and, as I say, become a conduit for that wonderful universal
Ainslie,
energy.
what is love?
Whoa.
I know. It's just like,
Well,
what is it? We talk
it's an
about
absence
it.
of fear.
We
No.
definitely, we send chocolate, we send flowers, we send teddy bears. We take our loved ones on vacations. We buy them diamonds. We buy them beautiful cars. We buy them a house. By the way, you all could always buy me a house, FYI. But I'm just saying, like,
Hello,
what
me too.
is love? Yeah, right? What is love for you?
Love certainly is the absence of fear, because that, like I say, is the only thing that gets in the way of really experiencing love and expressing love. It has to do with compassion. It has to do with empathy. One of the things that you gain from all this experience, the rough and tumble of being on a physical plane, some of the the unpleasant experiences, the challenging lifetimes, they shape who you are. And if you have a past, or a lot of past lives where you've been tortured, you've been mistreated, it's been pretty horrible. If you draw the right lessons, as I said earlier, the experience is not the lesson. The lesson is what you draw from it. It will teach you about the value of dignity, treating people kindly, and so on. So it's often through those harsh experiences as well as the good ones that we learn about the power of love. It's also about altruism, and it's, I said earlier, we live in a world that's not meant to be this way. And you look at what's happening with the pandemic or the fires, things that are happening right now. We should all be concerned. We should all be helping those who are in trouble. This was the way it was in the tribe tens of thousands of years ago, maybe back 40, 50,000 years ago. We all had a purpose, and we all knew that we had to take care of one another. The very survival of humanity depended on that. But along the way, we kind of lost it. We got caught behind the illusion, and we stopped seeing the connection that we all have to one another. And that's changing. We're going through a shift in consciousness. I think everyone's aware there's something going on, this transformation. And one of the effects of that is to open up our heart chakras through empathy and recognize that what's happening to somebody else is happening to us. And we shouldn't let someone be treated harshly. We should step in. We should help. We should do our bit. I mean, we're a long way from that, but a lot of the negative experiences that we're undergoing with those in power, for example, are starting to really shift the consciousness and make us aware that this is not a way humans should behave. We should all be helping and supporting one another.
Indeed. And that's one of the things I found through the yoga, or the connection between the soul and God. You really are starting to feel that love link, that deeper connection. It's starting to unfold more and more. Pave Sundar Murthy, I think she's from out of India. She's got a question for you. She says, what is the reason, Ainslie, for guilt? Is it a past life experience?
It can be. The past life, guilt from past life is often shame. And the shame, again, it's one of these fears that gets more imposed on you. If you're told you're a bad person, and again, I saw this from somebody, I think yesterday or the day before, I was working with, carrying a lot of shame in from a previous lifetime, where they didn't do anything worthy of that, but they were told it was a shameful thing for them to have done. They were made to feel responsible for something awful that somebody else had actually done to them. Guilt in the form of remorse is actually something that you get from the soul, and it's designed to get you to do something better next time, or do things differently. There's other aspects about it as well. I mean, always a past life connection, but one of the things that I find, I hope this isn't going off at too much of a tangent, but I found if you've died in a past life as a result of alcohol abuse, then you take two people, they go out and they tie one on. One feels, what a great night we had, we can't wait to do it again. But the person who has that past life experience will wake up feeling shamed, that alcoholic remorse. And it's the soul's way of saying, hey, we don't want to go the same way as we did before. It kind of imposes that on you. But I would see, if there can sometimes be guilt that comes from judgment. And that's a past life fear where you were judged. So I mentioned before, maybe judged and executed. The old soul can tend to turn that judgment inward and beat themselves up. They become their own worst enemy.
I've seen that with my mother.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And if you haven't seen it with yourself, you'll see it in somebody else. Being your own worst enemy, worst critic, and that's just coming from a place of fear. Again, if you can work through the past life, find out what happened, that will disappear.
Yeah, I want to jump into this because I know we're airing our show on 9/11. Thousands of lives were lost on this particular day.
Yeah.
Would you say that when those souls are reborn, would many of them have the fear of flying, fear of fire, fear of heights? Would that go with them?
Absolutely.
Or the fear of loss of a family member? Because I heard so many of them called their loved ones to just say, I love you, and that was it. That was their final moment. Or being claustrophobic, maybe the building would have fell on them, and so they're left with that, awful feeling of being, suffocating whilst they're alive. So all of that traumatic experience, they would, yeah.
So you're absolutely right. So it could be a fear of heights. I found that anyone who's had a fall in a past life, I mean, typically what I'll see is somebody falling off a horse and dying, and they'll have a huge fear of heights in this life. When if there's a connection with fire, of course, I've seen people who are really, really, super sensitive, super aware even about lighting a candle, but often feeling like I had a friend who I knew had died in a fire in a past life, and he said to me one time, my biggest fear is like driving along and hitting a petrol tanker, and yeah, of course, it would be the same kind of thing. You mentioned claustrophobia, like enclosed spaces. If you felt that you were crushed, absolutely, you're going to get that. It could be discomfort with enclosed elevators or something of that nature.
Yes.
Absolutely, they will show up. But one thing I thought was very interesting what you said there is that a lot of times when somebody is really facing their mortality, the conscious mind is sidelined a little bit, and all that comes out is love. It's just what that is. It's the soul, clear communication from the soul, and the soul is endlessly loving, providing it's not, the fears aren't interfering, and yeah, sometimes it's just really getting through to the source.
We could stay on the air with you for hours and hours.
I'd be happy to.
Where does jealousy come from?
Jealousy is a past life fear of inferiority. But that, again, I mentioned, coming from a past life where you were treated as if you had little value. It's one of the signs of that is that not everybody would have it. I mean, but it's certainly, you'll see this. The jealousy comes from comparing yourself to others, and then feeling that you're lesser in some sort of way. It's an externalized fear, if you like. It can often be, people can undermine you because of jealousy. It's one of the most hidden fears in a way, because very few people fess up to being jealous. I don't know. I've had clients who've been undermined at work by somebody, and I go, this person's crazy jealous of you, and they go, oh, that explains it. But it's not like nobody says, "Hey, I'm being really mean to you because I'm jealous."
I know, that's such an interesting.
They might even
energy.
say, "What? Me jealous to you?"
Energy.
Yeah.
September 10th was World Suicide Prevention Day, and the suicide rate has skyrocketed at a time when we have so many medications available, and the freedom of social media to communicate with whoever you want, whenever you want, across the world. Suicide rates is much higher. What would happen to souls that have unfortunately played that part? Well,
this is something I like to talk about, because there is a sort of conventional idea that somehow, spiritually it's a bad thing, and you'll have to come back and just go through the same stuff. But the spirit world is endlessly compassionate, endlessly forgiving. And those who are in spirit know what it's like to be here. They've all been through life on the physical plane, and they know how just damn difficult it can be sometimes, and that sometimes we just cannot cope anymore. And this is a way out. Actually, funnily enough, it is again a past life thing. I've found over and over, when people have died in a past life at their own hand, in this life, it's often where they will go to when they feel stressed, is thinking about exiting the same way. I saw somebody who had died in a past life from taking pills and alcohol, and I just discovered when I told her about that she had actually, at exactly the same age, she'd been age 19 in the past life. At age 19 this life, she made a very, very serious suicide attempt using pills and alcohol. Where the soul kind of goes is, well, it's always looking to the past for reference, and he says, okay, this is how we deal with it as well. Thank God she wasn't successful. But I have found that there's just total forgiveness on the other side. For the person who has taken their own life, it can be hard for that soul, because there can be a lot of regret and remorse about the effect on other people and people who are left behind. Almost like the moment they're over to the other side and they go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But sometimes when we're here and we're just dealing with physical plane stuff, we're not seeing this necessarily rationally or clearly. And I think the the whole thing here is about compassion. It's just really about love for people who really find life that hard, or whatever reason they have. Uh, I have a
Yeah.
I have a transgender son, and the suicide rate amongst transgender people is something like 41% of attempted suicide. And the one
Incredible.
factor that determines whether or not they go there is the love and acceptance of the family. So it's all, I mean, it all comes back to love, and really, if somebody is, really struggling, it's just, help them as much
So
as possible.
difficult.
Just open your heart to
It's
them.
about giving that love. It's about giving that love. And sometimes, because I think we're traveling with our own karmic stuff, we don't get a chance to really help in the way that we really want to. But something that touched my heart that you said
I
is
think that's
how,
true.
how the world of light, let's call it that, is just so forgiving, and it doesn't hold on to your past indiscretions, which is really a good thing. So we're going to come to a
Absolutely.
close, because I know we could go on, but in terms of, let's say, your transgender son, or let's say a gay person, what would you say was the past experience or the past life that they've come into this incarnation with these particular emotions?
Well, I think it would be different. It's different for everybody, but I mean, it can be.
Right.
There's no one single reason for this. So it can be, there can be just some confusion. Maybe, sometimes I've certainly seen it where the soul has had maybe comes in as a girl in this life, but it's had the last 12 incarnations have been male. And then sometimes it's hard you'll see somebody's maybe been male and then for a lot and then come in that way, have a little bit of a challenge learning to be feminine. What does it mean to be a girl? I've certainly seen that. It doesn't always necessarily mean that they're going to go transgender. It doesn't. I mean, and of course there's a difference between
Right.
gender and sexuality, or although they are kind of sometimes a little blurred spiritually, but.
Yes.
Bottom line is that whatever somebody's choice is there, or say maybe it's not a choice. You are what you are. I mean, it's
I
it's about
usually don't call
accepting.
it a choice.
Always.
Yeah, I
Right.
usually feel like whatever the state of mind was when we leave our body in the previous birth, and I've heard this and I've seen this actually. Let's say I'm a woman and I left my body thinking of my husband so deeply, and here I'm born as a male, but I still have these feminine tendencies, that inside of the soul, the energy of the feminine personality is still much stronger than the male body to catch up. So it's like I still spiritually at a soul level, I still have that recording, but I'm supposed to be attracted to a man, but why am I in a male body? And so still, it gets blurred, as you said, and I feel again, the neutralizing factor is, again, consider yourself a soul, remember the Supreme Being, and keep performing good karmas until you move on to the next one. It's like, as much as I try, Ainslie, to find all the answers to life, I go back to your soul. As you say in your book, it's the same soul traveling throughout time with birth after birth. Have love for God, let God's love melt these past stories, and keep doing good, and just see where you end up.
I think that's it. Just live a good life, and
Yeah.
be kind to others, and yeah, it's not rocket science. That's what my
Ainslie,
spirit guides love to say.
It isn't. It isn't. I know it isn't. Ainslie MacLeod, we've got to do a part 2. I've got to go. I'm going way over my time, but I've just enjoyed sitting in the living room and just having this evening chit-chat with you and everyone online. Let me know if you all have liked it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Give me scary face, give me happy faces, whatever. Just don't send me a what do you call it? What do you call those other emojis with the crying faces or anything like that? Just send me what you really feel you felt about today's discussion, but it was fantastic. So, Ainslie, thank you so much for taking the time to joining us tonight. And we've already posted your website and your activities. And I know you've got a book out, a new book called The Old I think Santosh is going to put it up.
Old Souls
Is it called
Guidebook.
Old Souls?
Yeah.
Beautiful,
Old Souls
beautiful.
Guidebook.
And what can
Yes.
we expect about that? What can we expect from that guidebook?
Well, it's I wrote that really. I was thinking, well, what would I have wanted back when I was trying to figure things out? And it's really just well, I think the graphic probably says it all there. It's really just a way of figuring out, understanding your life plan. And I always say your destiny is not a secret, but most people just don't know where to look for the answers.
Yes.
So that's
It's
the
so
intention
true. It's so
of the
true.
book here. And may I just say what a pleasure
Oh,
it has
thank you.
been talking with you, and some great questions from the audience as well.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, it just feels like family for me now. It's always been a sense that all
Oh, we're
souls
soul
had
family.
come into my connection, right? We're all souls, so we know what's up.
That's
But
right.
anyway, thank Christine for organizing everything, and thank you for offering us such insights so we can actually find some freedom in our lives, especially in these times, and to be continued.
Yeah.
To be continued. All right.
Indeed.
Take
All
good
right.
care.
Well, thank
Thanks
you, and
again.
take care.
All the best.
Thank you.
So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed that. I loved it. I mean, I actually forgot the time. I was just going on because I'm in that place as well for myself. I'm looking for deep answers, and not to say that I don't have it, but sometimes when you get into certain conversations and you trigger certain things inside of yourself, it helps. It really helps you to move on, to move to the next destination. So hopefully tonight's show helped you to move to your next destination, and it gave you some clarity. It might be one of those shows that you can rewind and play over again, and have a nice little Saturday or Sunday morning while you're getting ready and getting dressed in the morning. You play it over again just to get some answers to help you to find some more freedom, because the next normal is a very empowered, free, peaceful, pure, and upright human being. That's the next normal. I don't think we want to fall into the old and into the decayed sense of ourselves. We want to shine brighter than 1,000 suns. So thank you all for joining us tonight. It's been my pleasure to spend this evening with you, and hopefully everybody took just a lot of benefit again. Don't forget to tune in to our radio show, America Meditating Radio, and feel free to share these shows with your friends. Subscribe if you think it's beneficial, and pass it on if it's good news. Lots of love. Have a fantastic rest of your evening, and I will see you soon. Take care.
We find our nation on a precipice, true tipping point. Is this the moment that will finally change our country? Trying to rain on the thunder. Tell the storm I'm new. I'ma rain on this little love. Tell the sweet I'm new.
It's not a broken system. It was built to function exactly as it is.
We must respond with bold action.
This is our country too. We can build new systems that do what they should.
I'm a wild, come a march on the regular.
We are united. We are standing.
All the way.
And we are going to fight this fight.
Freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. I break chains up on myself.
There is something happening across this country.
When we work and when we fight and when we march and when we speak up and when we offer solutions, we win.
I'ma keep running cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
It's always the right time to celebrate women and black women in particular.
It is an opportunity to show the nation and the world that we will act. It has been an inspiration.
You have the choice, and it is that choice that gives you power.
Vote. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does.
That is what we need next. Action.
Hi everyone, it's Sister Jenna from America Meditating Radio. I hope you've been enjoying Wiseish, which you can get live on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube from 8:30 a.m. to 8:45, but you can also get it on demand 24/7. It's going to be your power boost for the morning. It's your daily dose for the soul. It's just going to encourage you to make the day that much more valuable. So join us. Looking forward to seeing you. Hi everyone, I'm Sister Jenna. Welcome to our special Zoom meditation segments. Look, it's no joke. Things are kind of weird. It's just weird. Pandemics, protests, job insecurity, global pause. Everyone's numb, but also everyone's searching. And they might be searching on this little gadget of Zoom in a little box. People from all over the world who don't know each other are coming together in Zoom rooms to figure out who they are, why they're here, and how to meditate. Meditation is something that we've often thought that if we make our minds empty, we've meditated. I don't believe that. I think it's important that we learn how to channel our thoughts in a right way that are connected to our vision, our goal, our spiritual attainments, our mental capacity. Then you're really meditating.
Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Thank you for my health, Spirit. Thank you for my health. Thank you for my health, Spirit. Thank you for my health. My radiant, my radiant, my radiant health. My radiant, my radiant, my radiant health. Thank you for my life, Spirit. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my life.